A rusty axe blade stopped 1 millimeter from my throat. The chrono bracelet on my wrist blinked red and kept showing the same message: synchronization error, network not found. The man holding the axe was screaming something in Middle French. I didn't understand the words, but the meaning was crystal clear. Let me explain how I got here, fast, because there is no time. My job title was temporal node operator. Sounds impressive. In reality, you sit in a glass booth the size of an elevator and make sure nobody gets stuck in a loop. This was a routine calibration jump. 48 hours, 1347. Southern France. Observation point outskirts of Marseille. In and out. Standard procedure. But something felt wrong the moment I exited. I felt it in the vibration. It was off. Too long, like being chewed instead of swallowed. The capsule hurled me into the mud. The bracelet flashed a date: October 14th, 1348. 1 year off. Exactly 1 year. The worst year in European history. The plague was already here. I understood that from the smell, not immediately. At first, just something sweet and heavy in the air. Then I saw the cart. It carried bodies, about 10 of them, stacked like firewood. The driver wasn't looking at them. He stared straight ahead with the face of a man who had stopped caring about everything. I pressed myself against the alley wall and started counting my resources. The bracelet damaged on landing. The sync antenna was bent and cracked at the base. Without it, I couldn't send a signal to the base. Food, one energy bar. Water, a 1.5 liter flask. Clothing, a gray operator's jumpsuit. Completely wrong for the 14th century. No documents, no language, no identity, meaning nobody here knew who I was. I was no one. In the most dangerous place on earth, first rule of surviving in the wrong time: don't stand out. I found a dead beggar in a doorway. He didn't mind anymore. I took his cloak, threw it over my shoulders, and almost immediately regretted it. The fabric reeked of urine and rot. But it was better than a jumpsuit from the future. I hid the bracelet under my sleeve. It was still blinking. I muted the sound and started moving. Marseille, in 1348, is not the romantic medieval city from textbooks. Its narrow streets with mud past your ankles. It's screaming from windows and the smell of burning sulfur. The wealthy burned it, believing the smoke drove away the plague. Its children staring at you with empty eyes. Its fear, tangible, like fog. It soaked into every stone of that city. On the third day, I found a blacksmith named Arnaud. Actually, he found me when I was trying to steal bread from his stall. I braced for a hit. Instead, he just looked at me for a long moment, then gestured quietly, "Come inside." Arnaud had been deaf and mute since birth. That saved us both. He didn't need an explanation for why I never spoke. We communicated with gestures. I helped work the bellows, hold coal, fix tools. In return, a corner by the furnace and a bowl of broth. At night, I took apart the bracelet, over and over, trying to understand what was broken. The antenna was bent and cracked at the base. I needed thin copper wire and something like solder. In the 14th century, that was a problem. The problems got worse on day 10. Dominican monks entered the city, inquisitors. The plague was killing hundreds, and the church had found the guilty Jews, healers, and those who behaved strangely. They noticed me at the market. I didn't realize at first. I just felt the stares. Then someone grabbed my sleeve, and the bracelet slipped out from under the cloak for 1 second. 1 second, that was enough. I understood the word sorcerer without a translator. They came for me at night, 4 men with torches and one in a black robe holding a cross. Arnaud tried to stand between us. They threw him into the wall. He hit his head and slid to the floor. They pinned my arms behind my back. The rope cut into my wrists. One of them grabbed the bracelet and clutched it in his fist. He stared at it like a devil's artifact. It probably looked exactly like that, a glowing rectangle with pulsing symbols. They dragged me through the street. I didn't scream. Screaming was pointless. Only one thought kept running through my head. If they destroy the bracelet, I stay here forever. The Inquisition's prison smelled of moisture, old blood, and terror. They threw me into a cell. Dirt floor. One window near the ceiling the size of a brick. They took the bracelet. I lay there listening to the sounds through the wall. Someone moaning. The creak of wood. Rhythmic impacts, methodical, like a metronome. The interrogation was scheduled for morning. I understood that from the way the monk looked at me as he left. I had one night I started thinking systematically. Panic is a luxury. I didn't have it. I sewed the rope on my wrists against a sharp corner of stone. 2 hours. My hands were bleeding but free. The door, heavy oak, bolted from the outside. Not an option. The window, too small even for my shoulders. The guard checked on me every 30 minutes. Brought water. He was alone. I waited for his third visit. When he bent down to set the ball on the floor, I used the one advantage a man from the future has. I knew anatomy. A strike with the edge of my palm to the base of the neck, precisely on the nerve cluster. He dropped without a sound. The bracelet was sitting in a small room next to the cell, on a table among other devil's objects. Someone's bones, a mirror, a bundle of dried herbs. I grabbed it. The screen flickered. Battery, 11%. Antenna, critical damage. Synchronization, impossible. 11%. With an intact antenna, that would be enough for a jump. But the antenna was broken. I looked at the table. Among the confiscated items was a copper chain, thin. Someone's taken along with its owner. My hands weren't cooperating. I bent the wire in the dark, by touch, with split fingers. Outside shouts. They'd found the guard. I worked faster. No way to solder. I simply twisted the copper tightly around the broken base of the antenna, as tight as I could. I hit restart. Antenna, partial signal. Synchronization, 34%. 34%. Not enough for a precise jump. It could throw me anywhere. They were already hammering on the door outside. The wood was splintering. 8 to 47%. I heard the bolt crack. 0.61%. The door burst open. The monk in black stood in the doorway. Two men with torches behind him. He shouted something, lunged toward me. I pressed the launch button. The last thing I saw in 1348 was his eyes. Not rage, terror. Because I disappeared right in front of him. Dissolved into a blue flash right out of his reaching hands. A jump without full synchronization isn't travel, it's falling into darkness. You spin, you break, you turn inside out, you don't know which way is up. I was screaming, not from pain, from the sensation of being disassembled molecule by molecule and rebuilt in random order. Then impact. Hard surface, cold, the smell of ozone and plastic. I opened my eyes. White ceiling, fluorescent lights, the quiet hum of equipment. Base. They found me 7 minutes later, lying on the floor of the arrival hall with the bracelet in my fist and a medieval cloak across my shoulders. Medics said something about dehydration and trauma. Someone kept pushing hot coffee into my hands. I said nothing, just stared at the ceiling. Then one of the technicians asked what happened to the bracelet's antenna. Said someone had wrapped copper wire around it. Old wire, very old. And that technically it had worked. I returned to work 3 weeks later. Back in my glass booth, back watching the monitors, back listening to the quiet hum of the chrono generators. Everything like before. But now I always carry a piece of copper wire on my wrist under my sleeve. And every time the bracelet shows routine calibration, I take a slow, deep breath because I know now there is no such thing as routine. There is only the next second. And what you choose to do with it, we made it back. If you like this time travel thriller, hit the like button and subscribe. What era should we explore next? Drop a comment below. See you soon.